Well, hi, and welcome to Unstoppable Mindset, where inclusion, diversity, and the unexpected meet. But the more fun thing about it is the unexpected. Unexpected is always a good thing, and unexpected is really anything that doesn't have anything directly to do with inclusion or diversity, which is most of what we get to deal with in the course of the podcast, including with our guest today, Rachelle Stone, who worked in the hospitality industry in a variety of ways during a lot of her life, and then switched to being a coach and a leadership expert. And I am fascinated to learn about that and what brought her to that. And we'll get to that at some point in the course of the day. But Rachelle, welcome to Unstoppable Mindset. We're glad you're here.
Thank you, Michael. I'm honored to be here. Excited to be talking to you today.
Well, it's a lot of fun. Now, you're in Florida?
I am. I'm in the Clearwater, Dunedin area. I like to say I live in Dunedin, Florida without the zip code.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hear you. Then makes it harder to find you that way, right? Physically.
Right, exactly. Dunedin without the zip code. We'll stick with that.
Yeah, that works. Well, I'm really glad you're here. Why don't we start by maybe you talking to us a little bit about the early Rachelle growing up and some of that stuff?
Yeah, I was lucky. I grew up in rural Western Massachusetts, little podunk town called Greenfield, Massachusetts. We were 18 miles from the Vermont border, which was literally a mile and a half from the New Hampshire border. So I grew up in this very interesting area where it was like a tri-state area. And our idea of fun growing up, well, we were always outdoors playing, very much outdoors. I had three siblings and I was the youngest. And it was one of those childhoods where you came home from school and mom would say, go outside, don't come back in the house until you hear the whistle. And every house on the street, every mother had a whistle. There were only 7 houses because there was a Boy Scout camp at the end of the road. So as the sun was setting and the street lights would come on, you would hear different whistles and different family kids would be going home. The Stone kids, that's your mom, go home, see you next time. It was great. And, as I got older and more adventurous, it was cow tipping and keg parties and bahaing and all sorts of things that we probably shouldn't have been doing in our later teen years, but it was fun.
Bahaing is?
It's four-wheeling, going up rough terrain. We had it was very, very hilly where I was, a lot of small mountains that you could conquer.
So in the winter, does that mean you got to do some fun things like sledding in the snow? Yeah.
Yeah. We had a great hill in the back of our yard. So I learned to ski in my own backyard. And we had 3 acres of woods. So we would go snowshoeing. We were also close to a private school called Northfield Mount Herman, which had beautiful, beautiful grounds. And in the winter, we would go cross-country skiing there. So again, year round, we were outdoors a lot.
Well, my time in Massachusetts was 3 years living in Winthrop. So I was basically East Boston.
Yes.
And very much enjoyed it. Loved the environment. I've been all over Massachusetts in one way or another, so I'm familiar with where you were. And I will admit, although the winters were cold, that wasn't as much a bother as it was when the snow turned to ice or started to melt, and then that night it froze. Yeah. That got to be pretty slippery.
Very dangerous. Very dangerous.
I then experienced it again later when we lived in New Jersey, and actually our house, to take the dogs out, we had no fenced yard, so I had to take them out on leash. And I would go down to our basement and go out a walkout basement onto a small deck or patio, actually. And then I had to go down a hill to take the dogs where they could go do their business. And I remember the last year we were in New Jersey, it snowed in May and the snow started to melt the next day. And then that night it froze. And it stayed that way for like about a day and a half. And so it was as slick as glass could be. So eventually I could go down a hill. It was very dangerous, but going back up a hill to come back in the house was not safe. So eventually I just used a very long flex leash that was like 20 feet long. And I sent the dogs down the hill and I stayed at the top.
That was smart.
Well,
Wow.
and
Yeah,
they didn't mind.
they just wanted to go do their business and they wanted to get back in the house too. It's cold.
Yeah, they didn't seem to be always in an incredible hurry to come back into the house, but they had no problem coming up the hill. That's the advantage of having claws.
Yes, pause. Yep. Four of them to boot, right?
Yeah, which really helped a great deal.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
I remember it. I love it. I
Yep.
loved it then. Now I live in a place in California where we're on what's called the high desert, so it doesn't get as cold, and we get hardly any of the precipitation that even some of the surrounding areas do, from Los Angeles and Long Beach and so on, to on the one side, up in the mountains where the snow is for the ski resorts on the other. So Los Angeles can have, or parts of LA can have, 3 or 4 inches of rain, and we might get a half inch.
Wow. So it stays relatively dry. Do you ever have to like down here we have something called black ice, which we get on the roads when it rains after it hasn't rained in a long time. Do you get that there in California?
There are places, yeah, not here where I live, because it generally doesn't get cold enough. It can. It's already in 2023, late 2023, we got down to 24 degrees one night. And it can get a little bit colder, but generally we're above freezing. So no, we don't get the black ice here that other places around us can and do.
Got it. Got it.
So you had obviously a fun, what you regard as a fun childhood.
Yeah. I remember the first day I went to a community college and it was a very last minute, impulsive, spontaneous decision. Wow, that kind of plays into the rest of my life too. I make very quick decisions. And I decided I wanted to go to college, and it was open enrollment. I went down to the school and they asked me, "What do you want to study?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just know I want to have fun." So they said, "You might want to explore recreation and leisure services." So that's what I wound up going to school for. And I like to say I have a degree in fun and games.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did you go beyond community college or junior college?
Interestingly enough, yeah, that was so I transferred. It took me 4 years to get a 2-year degree. And the reason was I was working full time. I moved out. I just, at 17, I wanted to be on my own and just moved into an apartment with 3 other people and went to college and worked. It was a fabulous way to live. It was wonderful. But then when I transferred to the university, I felt like I was a bit bored because I think the other students I was dealing with a lot of students coming in for the first time where I had already been in school for 4 years, in college for 4 years. So the experience wasn't what I was looking for. I wanted the education. And I saw a poster, and it was Mickey Mouse on the poster, and it was Walt Disney World college program, now accepting applications. So I wrote down the phone number or email, whatever it was. And I applied, I got an interview. And again, remember, Michael, I was really bored. I was going to school. It was my first semester in my 4-year program. And anyway, I got a call back and I was accepted into the Disney college program. So, at that time, they only took about 800 students a year. So it was back in 1989, long time ago. And I was thrilled. I left Massachusetts on January 31st, 1989, in the blizzard of 89.
Ah, yeah.
And I drove down to Orlando, Florida, and I never left. I'm still here in Florida. That was the beginning of my entire career, was applying for the Disney College program.
So what was that like, being there at the Disney College program?
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
I have to ask one thing. Did you have to go through some sort of operation to get rid of your Massachusetts accent?
Does it sound like it worked? No, I didn't have. Well, it was funny because I was hoping I would be cast as Minnie Mouse. I'm 4'10". I have learned that to be Minnie or Mickey Mouse, you have to be 4'8" or shorter. So I missed Minnie by 2 inches. My second choice was being a lifeguard, and I wound up What they offered me was Epcot parking lot, and I loved it. Believe it or not, helping to park cars at Epcot Center. I still remember my spiel to the letter that I used to give, because there was a live person on the back of the tram speaking, and then another one at the front of the tram driving it to get you from the parking lot to the front entrance of the gate. But the whole experience was amazing. It was, I attended classes. I earned my master's degree. I picked up a second and third job because I wanted to get into hotels. And so I worked 1 day a week at the Disney Inn, which is now their military resort. And then I took that third job was as a contractor for a recreation management company. So I was working in the field that I had my associates in. I was working at a hotel 1 day a week just because I wanted to learn about hotels. I thought that was the industry I wanted to go into. And I was driving the tram and spieling on the back of the tram 5 days a week. I loved it. It was phenomenal.
I have a friend who is blind who just retired from, I don't know, 20 or 25 years at Disneyland, working a lot in the reservation centers and so on, and speaks very highly of course, all the experiences of being involved with Disney.
Yeah, it's really, it was a wonderful experience. I think it gave me a great foundation for the work in hospitality that I did following. It was a great, I think it made me a better leader, better hospitality person for it.
Well, and there is an art to doing it. It isn't just something where you can arbitrarily decide I'm going to be a successful and great hospitality person and then do it if you don't learn how to relate to people, if you don't learn how to talk to people, and if you're not having fun doing it.
Exactly. Yes, fun. Fun is everything.
It's sort of like this podcast. I love to tell people now that the only hard and fast rule about the podcast is we both have to have fun or it's not worth doing.
That's right. I'm right there with you.
Yep. Gotta have fun.
Yes.
Well, so how long were you with Disney? And
so
what made you switched?
So Disney College Program. It was at that time it was called the Magic Kingdom College Program, MKCP. And it's grown quite significantly. I think they have 5,000 or 7,000 students from around the world now. But at that time, it was just a 1 semester program. I think for international students, it's a 1 year program. So when my 3.5 months were up, my semester, I could either go back. I was supposed to go back to school back in Massachusetts, but the recreation management company I was working for offered me a full-time position. So I wound up staying. I stayed in Orlando for almost 3.5 years. And ultimately, I wound up moving to South Florida and getting a new role with a different sort of company called a destination management company. And that was really the onset. Destination management was my career for 26 years.
So what is a destination management company?
So a destination management company is, they are the company that receives a group into a destination, meetings, conventions, events. So for instance, let's say Fathom, note taker, wants to have an in-person meeting, and they're going to hold it at the Lowe's Miami Beach. And they're bringing in 400 of their top clients and salespeople and operations people. They need someone on the receiving end to pick everybody up at the airport, to put together the theme parties, provide the private tours and excursions, do the exciting restaurant dine around, the entertainment, the amenities. So I did all the fun, and again, sticking with the fun theme here.
Yeah.
I did all of the auxiliary meeting fun add-ons in the destination that what you would do. And I would say I did about 175 to 225 meetings a year at the peak of my career.
So you didn't actually book the meetings or go out and solicit to book the meetings. You were the person who took over once a meeting was arranged. Once
a meeting was booked in the destination,
right?
If they needed a company like mine, then I would work with them. If I would be the company, there were several companies that did what I do, especially in Miami, because Miami was a top tier destination. So a client may book the Lowe's Miami Beach, and then reach out to 2 to 3 different DMCs to learn how can they partner with them to make the meeting the most successful. So it was always a competitive situation. And it was always, needing to do our best and give our best and be creative and out of the box. And yeah, it was an exciting industry.
So what makes the best destination management company, or what makes you very successful? Why would people view you as successful at what you do, and why they would want to choose you to be the company to work with? Because obviously, as you said, it's competitive.
Everybody, well, and there's choice. Everybody has choice. I always believed there was enough business to go around for everybody. Very good friends with some of my hardiest competitors. Interestingly, although we're competing, it's a very friendly industry. We all network together. We all dance in the same if we're going to an industry network, we're all together. Why would somebody choose me over somebody else was really always a decision. Sometimes it was creativity. Sometimes it was just a feeling for them. They felt the relationship just felt more authentic. Other times it was, they just really needed a cut and dry service. Every client was always different. There were never 2 programs the same. I might have somebody just wanting to book a flamenco guitarist for 3 hours, and that's all they need. And another group may need the transportation, the tours, the entertainment, the theme parties, the amenities, the whole ball of wax. Every group was different, which is, I think, what made it so exciting. It's that relationship building, I think, more than anything, because these companies are doing meetings all over the country, sometimes some of them all over the world. So relationships were really, really important to them to be able to go into a destination and say to their partner in that destination, hey, I'm going to be there next May. This is what I need. Are you available? Can you help? So I think on the initial front end, it is when it's a competitive bid, you're starting from scratch to build a relationship. Once that relationship is established, it is easier to build on that relationship. When things go wrong, let's talk about what worked, what didn't, and how we can do better next time, instead of throwing the entire relationship out with the bathwater and starting from scratch again. So it was a great industry. I loved it.
And obviously you must have been pretty successful at it.
I was lucky. Well, luck and skill. I have to give myself credit there too. I worked for other DMCs. I worked for event companies that wanted to expand into the DMC industry, and I helped them build that corporate division or that DMC division. I owned my own agency for, I think, 14 years, still alive and thriving. And then I worked for angel investors, helping them flip an underperforming. It was actually a franchise. It was an office franchise of a global DMC at the time. So I've had success in different areas of destination management, and I was lucky in that I believe in accreditation and certification. That's important to me. Credibility matters. And so I got involved in the association called the Association of Destination Management Executives International, ADMEI. I know it's a mouthful. But I wound up serving on their board of directors and their certification and accreditation board for 14 years throughout my career. And on the CAB, their certification and accreditation board, my company was one of the first companies in the country to become a certified company, ADMC certified. I was so proud of that. And I had all of my staff, I paid for all of them to earn their certification, which was a destination management certified professional. That's the designation. I loved that we could be a part of it. And I helped write a course, a university level course, and it was only 9 weeks, so half a semester, in teaching students what destination management is. That took me 3 years. It was a passion project with a couple of other board members on the CAB that we put together, and really glad to be a part of that and contributing to writing the book best practices in destination management, first and second edition. So I feel lucky that I was in this field at a time where it was really growing deeper roots. It had been the industry when I went into it was maybe 20 years young. And when I left it, it'd been around for 40 plus years. So it's kind of exciting to be
So
a part of
you
that growth.
so you said that you started a company and you were with it for 14 years, or you ran it for 14 years, and you said it's still around. Are you involved with it at all now?
I am not. I did a buyout with I had two partners at the time. And without going into too much detail, there were some things going on that I felt I could not align with. I felt it was unethical. I felt it was immoral. And I struggled for a year to make the decision. I spoke to a therapist and I ultimately consulted an attorney and I did a buyout and I walked away from this was my legacy. This was my baby. I built it from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I was the face of the company. So to give that up, my legacy, it was a really tough decision, but it really did come full circle because late last year, something happened which brought me back to that decision. And I can, with 100% certainty, say it was a values-driven decision for me. And I'm so happy I made that decision.
So
I am today.
yeah, and let's get to that a little bit. So you at some point you said that you had burnout and you left the industry. Why did you do that?
So after I sold my business, I worked for angel investors for about 3.5 years. They brought me in. This was an underperforming office that the franchisee, because they had owned it for 10 years, had done a buyout themselves and sold it back to the angel investors or the private equity. So they brought me in to run the office and bring it from surviving to thriving again. And it took me about 18 months, and I brought it from under $1 million to over 5.3 million in 18 months. So it's quite successful. And I had said to the owners, as they're thanking me and rewarding me, and it was a great first 2 years, I had said to them, please don't expect this again. This was a fluke. People were following me. There was a lot of curiosity in the industry because this was a really big move for me to sell my company and then go work for this one. It was big news. So it was a great time, but the expectation for me to rinse and repeat that kind of productivity was not realistic. It just wasn't realistic. And about 1.5 years later, I was driving from the Lowe's Miami Beach. It's funny because I used that as an example before, to the Breakers in Palm Beach. And if you know South Florida at all, you're taking your life in your hands every time you get on 95. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm driving from the Lowe's to the Breakers, and I just left a kind of a rough meeting. I don't even remember what it was anymore because that was back in 2014. And I'm driving to another meeting at the Breakers, and I hang up the phone with somebody. My son calls about something. Mom, this is going on for graduation. Can you be there? And I'm realizing I'm going to be out of town yet again for work. And I'm driving to the Breakers, and I just had this vision of myself in the middle of 95, slamming the brakes on in my car, coming to a full stop in the middle of the highway. I did not do this, and I don't recommend you do this. And I opened up my car door and I literally just walked away from my car. That was the image in my mind. And in that moment, I knew it was time for me to leave. I had gone as high as I could go. I'd done as much as I could do. I'd served on boards, contributed to books, spoken on panels. I wanted to go back to being an entrepreneur. I didn't want to work for angel investors anymore. I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to build something new. And I didn't want to do it in the DMC world. So I went home that night thinking I was going to just resign. Instead, I wrote a letter of retirement. And I retired from the industry. I walked away 2.5 weeks later. And I said I was never going to return.
And
I didn't know I burnt out, though, at the time.
what eventually made you realize that it was all burnout, or a lot of it was burnout?
So I didn't know anything about burnout at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew I was incredibly frustrated. I was bored. I was over incompetence, and I just wanted out. Was just done. I had done well enough in my industry that I could take a little time. I had a lot of people asking me to take on consulting projects. So I did. I started doing some consulting in hospitality. And while I was doing that, I was kind of peeling away the layers of the onion, saying, what do I want to do next? I did not want to do DMC. That's all I knew. So I started this exploration, and what came out of it was an interest in exploring the field of coaching. So I did some research. I went to the coachingfederation.org, which is the ICF, International Coaching Federation, is the leading accreditation body for coaches in the world. And through them, I researched who were some of the accredited schools. I narrowed it down. I finally settled on one, and I said, I'm going to sign up for one course. I just want to see what this coaching is all about. So I signed up for a foundations course with the school out of Pennsylvania. And probably about 3 weeks into the course, the professor said something which was like a light bulb moment for me, in that I realized, like, oh my God, I burnt out. And I was literally, at this time, we're in school, we're on the phone. It was not Zoom. We didn't have all this yet. It was, you were on the phone, and then you were pulling up documents on your computer. So the teacher couldn't see me crying. I was just sobbing, knowing that this is, I was stunned. I didn't say anything. I sat on this for a while. In fact, I sat on it. I started researching it, but I didn't tell anybody for 2 years. It took me 2 years before I finally admitted to somebody that I had burnt out. I was so ashamed, embarrassed, humiliated. I was this successful, high overachiever. How could I have possibly burnt out?
What did the teacher say?
It was, I don't even remember what it was, but I remember that shock of realization, of wellness, of, it was, you know what, it was that question, is this all there is? A lot of times when they were talking about, I believe they were talking about midlife crises and what really brings them on. And it is that pivotal question, is this really all there is? Is this what I'm meant to be doing? And then in their conversation, I don't even remember the full conversation. It was that recognition of, oh, that's what's happened to me. And as I started researching it, this is in 2015, as I'm researching it and learning, there's not a lot on it. I mean, there's some, mostly people's experiences that are being shared. Then in 2019, the World Health Organization officially recognizes burnout as a phenomenon, an occupational phenomenon.
And how would you define burnout?
Burnout is generally defined in 3 areas. It is it's the I always struggle with it. It's that disconnect, the disconnect or disassociation from wanting to succeed, from your commitment to the work. It is the belief that no one can do it well or right. It is there's that it's an emotional disconnect from caring about what you're doing and how you're showing up. And it shows up in your personal life too, which is the horrible thing, because it impacts your family so negatively. It's horrible.
And it does take a toll. And did it take any kind of a physical toll on you?
Well, what I didn't realize when I took this time, I was about 25 pounds overweight. I was on about 18 different medications, including all my vitamins. I was taking a lot of vitamins at that time too. I had chronic sciatica, insomnia. I was self-medicating. I was also going out eating rich dinners and drinking because because of the work I was doing. I had to entertain. That was part of my job. So as I was looking at myself, yes, physically, it turns out that this weight gain, the insomnia, the self-medication are also signs of risk of burnout. It's how we manage our stress. And that's really what it comes down to, that we didn't even know. We don't even know. No one teaches us how to process our stress. And that's really probably one of the biggest things that through everything that I've studied, and then the pandemic hitting, no one teaches us how to manage our stress. No one tells us that if we process stress, then the tough stuff isn't as hard anymore. It's more manageable. No one teaches us about how to shift our mindsets so we can look at changing our perspective at things, or only seeing things through our lizard brain instead of our curious brain. These are all things that I had no idea were keeping me, I didn't know how to do, and that were part of contributing to my burnout.
Is stress more self-created, or is it an actual thing? In other words, when there is stress in the world, is it something that really you create out of a fear or cause to happen in some way, and in reality there are ways to not necessarily be stressful, and maybe that's what you're talking about as far as learning to control it and process it?
Well, there's stressors are external. Stress is internal. So a stressor could be the nagging boss. It could be your kid has a fever and you're going to be late for work, or you're going to miss a meeting because you have to take them to the doctor. That's an external stressor.
Right.
So when that external stressor goes away, the traffic breaks up, or your husband takes the kid to the doctor so you can get to your meeting, whatever. That external stressor is gone. You still have to deal with the stress that's in your body. That stress builds up. It's cortisol, and that's what starts with the physical impacts. So those physical symptoms that I was telling you about that I had, that I didn't know were part of my burnout, it was unprocessed stress. Now, at that time, I couldn't even touch my toes.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing any sort of exercise for my body. And that is one of the best ways you can process stress. Stress actually has to cycle out of your body. No one tells us that. No one teaches us that. So how do you learn how to do that?
Well, of course, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's learning, it's being willing to look internally. What's going on in your body? How are you really getting in touch with your emotions and feelings and processing them?
Well, and you talk about stressors being external, but you have control. You may not have control directly over the stressor happening, but don't you have control over how you decide to deal with the external stress creator?
Yes, and that external stress will always go away. The deadline will come and go. The sun will still rise tomorrow and set tomorrow night. Stressors always go away, but they're also constantly there. So
Right.
You've got, for instance, the nagging boss is always going to bring you stress. It's how you process the stress inside. You
Right.
can choose to ignore the stressor, but then you're setting yourself up for maybe not following through on your job or doing your job.
Right. And I wouldn't suggest ignoring the stressor, but
it's processing that stress in your body. It's not. So let's say at the end of the rough day, the stressor's gone. You still, whether you choose to go for a walk or you choose to go home and say, honey, I just need I need a 60-second full-on contact bear hug from you, because I'm holding a lot of stress in my body right now and I've got to let it out. So that physical contact will move stress through your body. You can see this in MRI studies. You see the decrease in the stress. Neuroscience now shows this to be true. You've got to move it through your body.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before I wanted to kind of give you the formal definition of burnout. They call it a occupational phenomena. Okay. By that, they're not calling it a disease. It is not classified as a disease, but it is noted in the International Classification of Diseases, and it has a code. Now, they do tie it directly to chronic workplace stress. And this is where I have a problem with the World Health Organization, because when they added this to the International Classification of Diseases in 2019, they didn't have COVID-19 hybrid or work from home environments in mind. And it has totally changed. Stress and burnout are following people around. It's very difficult for them to escape. So besides that disconnect that I was talking about, it's really complete exhaustion, depletion of your energy, just drained from all of the stressors. And again, it's that reduced efficiency in your work that you're producing because you don't care as much. It's that disconnect. So, and then the physical symptoms do build up. And burnout isn't like this. It's not an overnight thing. It's a buildup, just like gaining 25 pounds, just like getting sick enough that I need a little bit more medication for different issues. That stuff builds up on you. And when you're recovering from burnout, you didn't get there overnight. You're not going to get out of it overnight either. It's a process. I worked with a personal trainer until I could touch my toes. And then she's pushed me out to go join a gym.
Well,
but again, it's step by step and learning to eat healthy. And then ultimately, the third piece that really changed the game for me was learning about the muscles in my brain and getting mentally fit. That was really the third leg of getting my health back.
So how does all of that help you deal with stress and the potential of burnout today?
Yeah. More than anything, I know how to prevent it. That is the number one thing. I know when I'm sensing a stressor that is impacting me, I can quickly get rid of it now. For instance, I'll give you a good example. I was on the board of directors for my homeowners association. And
that's always stressful. I've been there.
Right? Well, I was up for an hour and a half one night ruminating. And I realized, because I coach a lot of people around burnout and symptoms. So when I was ruminating, I recognized, oh my gosh, that HOA does not deserve that much oxygen in my brain. And what did I do the next day? I resigned.
Yeah.
So removing the stressors so I can process the stress. I process my stress. I always make sure I schedule a beach walk for low tide. I will block my calendar for that so I can make sure I'm there, because that fills my tank. That's self-care for me. I make sure I'm exercising. I'm eating good food. I actually worked with a health coach last year because I felt like my eating was getting a little off kilter again. So I just hired a coach for a few months to help me get back on track, getting support where I need it. That support circle is really important to maintain and process your stress and prevent burnout.
So we've talked a lot about stress and dealing with it and so on. And I'd like to get back to the idea of you explored working with the International Coaching Federation, and you went to a school. So what did you then do? What really made you attracted to the idea of coaching, and what do you get out of it?
Oh, great question. Thanks for that. So for me, once I was in this foundations course, I recognized or realized what had happened to me. I again kept my mouth shut, and I just continued with the course. By the end of the course, I really, really enjoyed it. And I decided I wanted to continue on to become a coach. So I just continued in my training. By the end of 2015, early 2016, I was a coach. I went and joined the International Coaching Federation, and they offer accreditation. So I wanted to get accredited because, as I said, from my first industry, a big proponent for accreditation. I think it's very important, especially in an unregulated industry like coaching. So we're not bound by HIPAA laws. We are not doctors. We are coaches. It's very different lane, and we do self-regulate. So getting accredited was important to me, and I got my ACC, which my associate, a certified coach, in 2016. When I moved to the area I'm living in now in 2017, and I joined the local chapter here, I just continued on. I continued with education. I knew my lane is burnout. I started to own it. I started to bring it forward a little bit and talk about my experiences with other coaches and clients to help them through theirs, and it felt natural. So with the ICF, I wanted to make sure I stayed in a path that would allow me to hang my shingle proudly. And everything I did in the destination management world, I'm now doing in the coaching world. I wound up on the board of directors for our local chapter as a programming director, which was so perfect for me because I'm coming from meetings and events. So I was a perfect person to do their programming. And now I am their chapter liaison and I am president-elect. So I'm taking the same sort of leadership I had in destination management and wrapping my arms around it in the coaching industry.
You talk about people honing their leadership skills to help prepare them for a career move or their next career. It isn't always that way, though, right? It isn't always necessarily that they're going to be going to a different career.
Yep, correct. Yeah, I mean, not everybody's looking for transition. Some people are looking for that to break through the glass ceiling. I have other clients that are just wanting to maybe move laterally. Others are just trying to figure it out. Every client is different. While I specialize in hospitality and burnout, I probably have more clients in the leadership lane, senior VP level, that are trying to figure out their next step, if they want to go higher or if they're content where they are. And a lot of that comes from that ability to find the right balance for you in between your career and your personal life. I think there comes a point when we're in our younger careers, we are fully identified by what we do. I don't think that's true for upcoming generations, but for our generation and maybe some millennials, very identified by what they do. There comes a point in your career, and I'm going to say somewhere between 35 and 50, where you recognize that those two things need to be separate. And you
the two things being
your identity, who you are from what you do.
Got it.
Two different things. And a lot of leaders on their journey get so wrapped up in what they do, they lose who they are.
What really makes a good leader?
Authenticity. I'm a big proponent of heart-based leadership. Brene Brown, I'm Brene Brown trained. I am not a facilitator, but I love her work and I introduce all my clients to it, especially my newer leaders. I think it's that authenticity. The command and control leadership no longer works. And I can tell you, I do work with some leaders that are trying to improve their human skills. And by that, I mean their emotional intelligence, their social skills, their ability to interact on a human level with others. Because when they have that high command and control directive type of leadership, they're not connecting with their people. And we now have 5 generations in the workforce that all need to be interacted with differently. So command and control is a tough kind of leadership style that I actually, unless they're open to exploring other ways of leading, I won't work with them.
Yeah, and the reality is I'm not sure command and control as such ever really worked. Yeah, maybe you controlled people, but did it really get you and the other person and the company what you needed?
Generally, that's what we now call a toxic environment.
Yes.
Yes. But we have been on a path of, this work ethic was supposed to become a leisure ethic in the 70s. We went to 40-hour work weeks. Where are we now? We're back up to 60, 70-hour work weeks.
Yeah.
We're trying to lower the age so kids can start working. This is not a leisure ethic that we were headed towards. And now with AI, okay, let's change this conversation.
Yeah.
Toxic environments are not going to work moving forward. That command and control leadership, there's not a lot of it left, but it's lingering. And some of the old guard, it's slowly changing.
It is, I think, high time that we learn a lot more about the whole concept of teamwork and true, real team building.
Yes.
And there's a lot to be said for there's no I in team.
That's right.
And it's an extremely important thing to learn. And I think there are still way too many people who don't recognize that. But it is something that I agree with you over time. It's starting to evolve to a different world. And the pandemic actually was one and is one of the things that helps it, because we introduced the hybrid environment, for example, and people are starting to realize that they can still get things done and they don't necessarily have to do it the way they did before, and they're better off for it.
That's right. Innovation is beautiful. As horrible as the pandemic was, there was a lot of good that came out of it, to your point. And it's interesting because I've watched this in coaching people. I remember early in the pandemic, I had a new client and they came to their first call on Zoom, really slumped down in the chair. Like I could barely see their nose and up. And, as we're kind of talking, getting to know each other, one of the things they said to me, because they were working from home, they were working like 10, 11 hours a day. They had 2 kids, a husband, and they also had, one of the things they said to me, which blew my mind, was, I don't have time to put on a load of laundry. They're working from home.
Yeah.
It's that mindset that you own my time because you're paying me.
Yeah.
Versus I'm productive and I'm doing good work for you is why you're paying me.
Yeah.
So it's that perception and trying to shift one person at a time, shifting that perspective.
You talked before about you're a coach, you're not a doctor, which I absolutely appreciate and understand. And in studying coaching and so on, one of the things that I've read a great deal about is the whole concept of coaches are not therapists. A therapist provides a decision or a position or a decision. And they are more the one that provides a lot of the answers because they have the expertise. And a coach is a guide who, if they're doing their job right, leads you to you figuring out the answer.
That's a great way to put it. And it's pretty close. That's pretty close. I like to say therapy is a doctor-patient relationship. It's hierarchy. So, and the doctor is diagnosing. It's about repair and recovery, and it's rooted in the past. Diagnosing, prescribing, and then the patient following orders and recovering.
Mm-hmm.
In coaching, it's a peer-to-peer relationship. So we're co-creators and we're equal. And it's based on future goals only. It's only based on behavior change and future goals. So when I have clients and they dabble backwards, I will, that's crossing a line. I can't support you there. I will refer clients to therapy. And actually what I'm doing right now, I'm taking a mental health literacy course through Harvard Medical Center, McLean University. And the reason I'm doing this is because so many of my clients, I would say 80% of my clients are also in therapy. And it's very common. We have a lot of mental health issues in the world right now as a result of the pandemic, and we have a lot of awareness coming forward. So I want to make sure I'm doing the best for my clients in recognizing when they're at need or at risk and being able to properly refer them.
Do you think, though, that even in a doctor-patient relationship, that more doctors are recognizing that they accomplish more when they create more of a teaming environment. And
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, I'm
okay.
so glad you brought that up.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes.
Go
I
ahead.
love that. I have clients who are in therapy, and I ask them to ask their therapist so that if they're comfortable with this trio, and it works beautifully. Yes.
It is it just seems to me that, again, there's so much more to be said for the whole concept of teaming and teamwork. And patients do better when doctors or therapists and so on explain and bring them into the process, which almost makes them not a coach as you are, but an adjunct to what you do, which is what I think it's all about.
Or are we the adjunct to what they do?
Or you're
right?
the adjunct to what they do. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
team,
Yes,
which is
it
what
is.
it should be.
Yeah, I always, it's like the Oreo cookie, right?
Yeah, and the frosting is in the middle.
Yeah, client in the middle. But it's true. Like a therapist can work both in the past and in the future. But that partnership and that team mentality and supporting a client, it helps them move faster and further in their desired goals.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's extremely important. Tell me about this whole idea of mental fitness. I know you're studying that. Tell me more about that. Is it real? Is it hokey or what? Like,
It's not
a lot of
it's
people
real.
talk about it and they say who cares?
They all roll their eyes. Mental fitness. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I like to say mental fitness is the third leg of is what keeps us healthy. I like to look at humans as a three-legged stool. And that mental fitness, that mental wellness is that third piece. So you have your spiritual and community wellness, you have your physical wellness, and then you have your mental wellness. And that mental wellness encompasses your mental health, your mental fitness. Now, mental fitness, by definition, is your ability to respond to life's challenges from a positive rather than a negative mindset. And there's a new science out there called positive. It was actually not a new science. It's based on 4 sciences. Positive intelligence. It's a cognitive behavioral science or psychology, positive psychology, performance psychology, and drawing a blank. Anyway, 4 sciences. And this body of work determined that there's actually a tipping point. We live in our amygdala mostly, and there's a reason. When we were cavemen, we needed to know if what was coming, that outside stressor was going to eat us or if we could eat it.
Yeah.
But we have language now. We don't need that. Not as much as we did.
Not in the same way.
Not in the same way. Exactly. We do need to be aware of threats, but not every piece of information that comes into the brain. When that information comes in, our brains amplify it by a factor of 3 to 1. So with that amplification, it makes that little tiny ember into a burning, raging fire in our brain. And then we get stuck in stress. So it's recognizing, and there's actually, you are building, if you do yoga, meditation, Tai Chi, gratitude, journaling, any sort of those practices, you're flexing that muscle. You talk to somebody who does gratitude journaling, who just started it. A month in, they're going to tell you they're happier. They're going to tell you they're not having as many ruminating thoughts. And they're going to say, I'm smiling more. I started a new journal this year and I said, I'm singing more. I'm singing songs that I haven't thought of in years.
Yeah.
Out of the blue, popping into my head.
Yeah.
And I am happier. So the concept of mental fitness is really practicing, flexing this muscle every day. We take care of our bodies by eating good food. We exercise or walk. We do that to take care of our physical body. We do nothing to take care of our brain other than scroll social media and get anxiety because everybody's life looks so perfect. It's not serving.
Yeah, and all we're doing is using social media as a stressor.
That's right. I'm actually not on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. That's it.
I have accounts, but I don't go read it. It's
exactly
my excuse is it takes way too long with a screen reader, and I don't have the time to do it. I don't mind posting occasionally, but I just don't see the the
Yeah,
need to
the
be on
value
social
anymore.
media for hours every day.
No, no. I do like a lot of businesses, especially local small businesses they advertise, they don't have websites, they're only on Facebook. So I do need to go to social media for things like that. But
Yeah.
for the most part, no, I'm not there. Not at
Yeah.
all.
It's
Yeah.
way too much work. I am amazed sometimes when I'll post something, and I'm amazed at how quickly sometimes people respond. And I'm wondering to myself, how do you have the time to just be there to see this? Because it can't all be coincidence. You've got to be constantly on
Active,
social
right?
media to see it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is,
And this whole concept of mental fitness is really about building a practice, a habit. It's a new habit, just like going to the gym. And it's so important for all of us. Our behaviors are based on how we interpret these messages as they come in.
yeah.
So learning to reframe or recognize the message and give a different answer is imperative in order to have better communication, to be more productive and less chaos.
How do we teach people to recognize that they have a whole lot more control over fear than they think they do, and that really fear can be a very positive guide in our lives? And I say that because I talked about not being afraid of escaping from the World Trade Center over a 22-year period. What I realized I never did was to teach people how to do that. And so now I wrote a book that will be out later in the year. It's called Live Like a Guide Dog: Stories from a blind man and his dogs, about being brave, overcoming adversity, and walking in faith. And the point of it is to say that you can control your fear. I'm not saying don't be afraid, but you have control over how you let that fear affect you and what you deal with and how you
It's
deal with
choice.
it.
It's all choice.
It is all choice. But
Well,
how do we teach people to deal with that better rather than just letting fears build up?
Michael, I think these conversations are so important. Number one is that learner's mind, that willingness, that openness to be interested in finding a better way to live. I always say that's a really hard way to live when you're living in fear.
Yeah.
So step number one is an openness or a willingness or a curiosity about wanting to live life better.
And we have to instill that in people and get them to realize that we all have the ability to be more curious if we choose to do it.
But again, choice. And that's the big thing. So many, and then there's also, Michael, I can't wait to read your book. I'm looking forward to this. I'm also know that you speak. I can't wait to see you speak. The thing is, when we speak or write and share this information, we give them insight.
Mm-hmm.
It's what they do with it that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why with the mental fitness training that I do, it's 7 weeks.
Yeah.
I want them to start to build that habit. And I give them 3 extra months so they can continue to work on that habit, because it's that important for them to start. It's foundational. Your spirit, when you talk about your experience in the World Trade Center and you say you weren't fearful, your spiritual practice is such a big part of that. And that's part of mental fitness too. That layers on top of your ability to flex those mental muscles and lean into your spirituality and not be afraid.
Well, I'd love to come down and speak. If you know anybody that needs a speaker down there, I'm always looking for speaking opportunities. So love your help. And
I'll keep my ears open for sure.
And Live Like a Guide Dog will be out later this year. I've already gotten a couple of Google alerts. The publisher has been putting out some things, which is great. Ooh. So we're really excited about it.
Oh, wonderful. I can't wait to see it.
So what's up for you in 2024?
So I actually have a couple of things coming up this year that are pretty big. I have a partner. Her name's Vimari Roman. She's down in Miami and I'm up here in the Dunedin Clearwater area, but we're both hospitality professionals that went into coaching. And we're both professional certified coaches and we're both certified mental fitness coaches. When the pandemic hit, she's also a career strategist. She started coaching at conferences because the hospitality industry was hit so hard. Mm-hmm. And she reached out to me and brought me in too. So in 2024, we've been coaching at so many conferences. We can't do it we can't do it. It's just too much. But we also know that we can provide a great service. So we've started a new company. It's called Coaches for Conferences, and it's going to be like I'll call it a clearinghouse for securing pro bono coaches for your conferences. So that means, let's say you're having a conference in LA, and they'd like to offer coaching, pro bono coaching to their attendees as an added value. We'll make the arrangements for the coaches local in your area to come coach. You just have to provide them with a room and food and beverage and a place to coach on your conference floor and a breakout. So we're excited for that. That's getting ready to launch. And I think 2024 is going to be the year for me to dip my toe in, start writing my own story. I think it's time.
Writing a book. You can say it.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to write a book.
Good for you.
I've said it out loud. I've started to pull together some thoughts around. I mean, I've been thinking about it for years, but if the timing feels right,
then it probably is.
Yep.
Which makes sense. Well, this has been fun. It's been wonderful. Can you believe we've already been at this for more than an hour? So clearly we have. I cannot
believe it. This went so fast.
Clearly we did have fun. So we followed the rule.
We did. That was it. Rule number one.
This was fun. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank you all for listening and for watching if you're on YouTube watching. And all I can ask is that wherever you are, please give us a 5-star rating for the podcast. We appreciate it. And anything that you want to say, we would love it. And I would appreciate you feeling free to email me and let me know your thoughts. You can reach me at Michael, Michaelhi, at Accessibe, ACCESSIBE.com. Would love to hear from you. You can also go to our podcast page, www.michaelhingson.com/podcast, and it's MICHAELHINGSON. And as I said to Rachelle just a minute ago, if any of you need a speaker, we'd love to talk with you about that. You can also email me at speaker@michaelhingson.com. Love to hear from you and love to talk about speaking. So, however, you reach out, and for whatever reason, love to hear from you. And for all of you, and Rachelle, if you know anyone else who ought to be a guest on Unstoppable Mindset, let us know. We're always looking for people who want to come on the podcast. Doesn't cost anything other than your time and putting up with me for a while, but we appreciate it and hope that you'll decide to introduce us to other people. So with that, I again want to say, Rachelle, thank you to you. We really appreciate you being here and taking the time to chat with us today.
It's been the fastest hour of my life. I'm going to have to watch the replay. Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure to join you.